Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2007 Chevy Silverado, same as a GMC Sierra, 1500 4x4. It's got the 4.8 liter V8 in it, and the customer reported several weeks ago when I looked at this thing back on the 27th of April that he was driving it and it lost power, lost throttle response. I don't think it actually quit on him at that time, but he had to limp it home. And I went to his house and checked it, and at that time all it had was some Evap system codes and a P0300 random cylinder misfire. Now, he drove it for the past few weeks and it was fine on and off, but apparently a day or so ago it acted up again to the point where it actually stalled out and would not restart. The next morning again it's fine. So we're going to scan this thing and see if there's any codes other than the Evap codes, and see if there's any freeze frame data attached to anything. So you can see the codes recorded on April the 27th, P0300, P0446, 449, 455. I don't think, in my opinion, the Evap codes would cause a drivability problem. Possibly fuel vapor getting back into the intake might cause it to stumble, but I don't think that's the cause here. But we're going to scan it now and see if there's any codes related to, put the mileage in after. Let's do a network code scan. It's running right now and it started fine. So we have a vent control solenoid problem, likely an open solenoid. Anti-lock brake, ABS relay circuit open. I guess that's the end of the report. Power mode master input circuit mismatch. That's interesting. I don't know if that code was there before. Key and ignition circuit malfunction. Now this does have an aftermarket car starter in it, so sometimes that B2961 is set by an aftermarket car starter. Passenger compartment dimming cluster circuit malfunction. But this power mode master B1440 should cause, or could cause, a starting issue, but I don't think it would cause it to quit or lose power. Generator battery control module. Audio output radio, class 2 data link high, and Evap. All the monitors. The only thing that's not run is the Evap system monitor because of the current fault code. So I'm gonna have to put some gauges on this thing, like a fuel pressure gauge on it, and maybe take it for a road test and see if it'll act up. Let's go into engine, automatic, codes, display codes. I don't see the P0300 code, just a 449. So we're at a loss as to what's going on with this thing. Let's put some test equipment on it and go for a road test. So I got a fuel pressure gauge taped to the windshield so I can watch fuel pressure, and I got it running now. It's only got 207,000 kilometers on it. Looking at the history, I don't have history prior to April on this thing, so I don't know if the codes for the ignition monitor are related to this aftermarket car starter or not. I guess we got to drive it and see if we can get it to act up. So here's the system report from April when I scanned it. And it ran fine when I road tested it that day, but it had a number of O2 sensor heater codes. I can't remember if we found an O2 sensor, if we found the fuse for that sensor burnt. I think that we might have. Let me see if I made any comments in my report here. Smoke test is, no, that was, I changed the fuel pump because line rusted out back in March of 2018 at 152,000. Okay, well, I'm gonna go for a road test with this thing and see if I can get it to act up. If it loses fuel pressure, it could set random misfire codes, and it may not set fuel trim codes if the problem doesn't last long enough. If it loses fuel pressure and dies, it's not going to set a code for running lean, in my opinion. But we're going to watch data while we drive it. Fuel trim data. So this snap-on scanner is recording data now. I think this is a mechanical returnless system because it does have a fuel pump relay. I'm going to check while it's running to see if this has got a fuel pump driver in the back. So we're underneath this truck having a look-see, and she's pretty rusty. That's not a good sign right there. That's not good. Frame's rotten on both sides. Wow. This thing wouldn't pass the safety check, so it's questionable whether we should be doing any significant repairs on it. Doesn't have a fuel pump driver back here, so this is like the 06 design with the mechanical returnless fuel pump. There's the vent solenoid right there. Not enough steel underneath here to... I'm going to unplug this thing and put a test light across it and see if the code goes to history. Is that shield falling off? Tank straps. They're there, but questionable. Alright, let's put a noid light in that sender, or in that vent solenoid connector. So I've got a test light connected across the vent solenoid connector, and I'm going to clear the codes, say yes, and give it 10 seconds or so, and then read the codes again and see if the code is in history. So the code's gone to history, but just take it one step further. I'm going to actuate the solenoid, output controls, vent solenoid, continue, and command it on. Let's go see if it's actually on. Yeah, there's my test light connected across there. So it does need a vent solenoid. It looks like it's been changed because it has hose clamps on it. I've had the modification done where the hose is running up inside the frame rail. I'm going to zoom out a bit here. But that's the least of his concerns. So I'm exploring that O2 sensor heater fault code. I'm pretty sure it had a blurred fuse, and bank 2 sensor 2 O2 sensor rubs on the frame, and if it shorts out that wire on the frame, you can see it's rubbed through the insulation. I can't see if it's rubbed through on the... I'll just push it up like that for now, because that heater blowing won't cause a problem. I wonder if the ground on the ignition coils is compromised, because that ground is up above up in here. Right up there. There's the ground right there. Because I've had that ground fail and it causes it to quit. And there'll be no spark and no fault codes. What do we got here? Axle seal leaking. I'm going to test the ground on that coil. So I reached up there and I just touched the ground, the engine stalled, and the truck quit. And there's the ground wire. Goes to that same eyelet bolt. It's corroded off. And that's the ground for the ignition coils. I can't remember what number it is, but it's irrelevant. If that ground fails, you'll have no spark from any coil, but you'll have no fault codes, believe it or not. It's a pretty common occurrence. And I'm sure that that's the cause of his lack of power and running rough and random misfires. I'm going to try and run a new wire because I'm not going to try and attach it to that. See where it's attached up there? Maybe. I'm going to turn the key off. So I added about 6 or 8 inches of wire to that ground wire, soldered and heat shrunk, put an eyelet and bolted it up here instead of down at the block. It's a little hard to get above the differential. If it was a 2-wheel drive, there'd be lots of room, but being a 4-wheel drive, the differential's in the way. And I'm going to discuss the rest of the repairs with this customer. I think that's the cause of his intermittent misfire and loss of power is a voltage drop on that ground. It's too bad I wasn't recording it when I touched that wire. I just touched it and the truck stumbled a couple of times and then it quit. So that's it. We'll take the fuel pressure gauge off this thing and give it back to the customer.